Welcome to the Barside Pubcast, and today with us is Rich. How you doing, mate?
I'm all right, mate. Very good, thanks, Andy.
Good.
How are you?
Yeah, very well, very well. And also with us is Lee. How you doing?
Fuming, mate. Fuming. Conte out.
There's a
Pressure
few.
out.
I can see Levy out is trending at the moment.
Yeah,
So
I've got the plane already. I'm flying that across the stadium tonight.
Have you borrowed it off Arsenal?
Yeah,
yeah,
I've got
we're
bin bags as well to go on the seats.
on a timeshare, aren't we, with Arsenal? Yeah, they'll be using it later in the season. So yeah, let's face it. So yeah, what happened last night? We had a game, I think, didn't we? And
I'm trying to forget.
yeah, it was a bit of a strange one, but when we go to that place, it's always a bit difficult, I think.
Mm,
Um, so we obviously didn't have Benton Kerr with us last night because he had a knock on his bonds, and we had a bit of a change on the lineup, just Basuma.
mhm.
What did anybody think about that? I thought that was a fair kind of addition to the or replacement in the squad.
Well, I personally, I welcomed it. I was looking forward to seeing Basuma come on. I thought that was obviously the logical. There was no really other choice, to be fair, because in that position, Skippy had only just come back. So,
Hmm.
but Basuma was pretty awful in the first half. He grew into it. I thought in the second half was a bit better. I'm not surprised. I don't sort of, I've got there's none of my ire, to be honest, is directed towards him because he hasn't really had many minutes, and it's going to
Hmm.
take him quite a while to settle in the game. Definitely wasn't one of the worst, but it's
No,
just
he did struggle though, didn't he?
he did
Throughout
struggle,
throughout the
yeah.
evening.
And there
Yeah.
was some challenge. I mean, like the stupid thing where he hit the ball on the ground after that. I mean, clearly, obviously, he was annoyed because it wasn't actually a foul, and I think he got a yellow for it. But that stupid, that petulance in a game like this is nonsense because he's just on a hair trigger. Then they're waiting to wind him up to send him off. So he then afterwards he was having
Hmm.
to be cautious for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it did stunt his performance, I felt. What did you think, Rich? How did you think Basuma played generally?
Well, similar to Lee, really. I wasn't particularly impressed. I think both of the midfield pair were pretty absent for the first half, weren't they?
Hmm.
Or much, certainly after the penalty, or not penalty, as it turned out to
Yeah.
be. I thought we looked pretty good overall up until that point, if not impressive.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, once he sort of threw the ball away and got his yellow, um, I actually thought what it reminded me of afterwards was that they targeted him once he was on a yellow, like we target Wilf Zaha when we play Crystal Palace.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they could see that he was a bit of a weak link.
Mm.
He'd already been wounded, as it were. So yeah, they were going for the kill, weren't they? But
And,
Yeah,
and talking of targeting, they also targeted Sanchez the whole
they did.
night, didn't they?
They
yeah,
did. Yeah,
yeah.
and I understand that. Let's
Mm.
face it. That kind of axis at the back that we've got of Romero, sorry, Royale, Sanchez, and Loris. That kind of passing route out of the back
Mm.
is fraught with issues because of their ability to do what other players can do very well. Um, but yeah, I thought that West Ham set themselves up tactically pretty well for that game. And it did stunt us. It did stunt us in midfield. And they knew as well, and I don't know what you guys think about this, but the way that Conte plays, it's pretty fixed, two in midfield, wing backs. If you can keep those wing backs back by whatever means, it means that you can overload that midfield.
Hmm.
And and I just felt they did that quite well. But it's not something that I think you can necessarily win a game with, but you can certainly stop us progressing up the pitch by playing out, and we have to play long. And of course, that means that it's anybody's ball then.
It's strange, isn't it? Because the draw that we had with Chelsea felt kind of like a win, but this draw felt kind of like a loss.
Well, without a doubt,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
because really they haven't been good. But the frustrating thing is that we know what's going to happen every time we play them. they're going to raise their game
Yeah, I know.
fourfold.
I
And
know.
yet we I'm not saying we've not had a fairly decent record there. We have, but surely we need to start quicker, more aggressively, and just be less sloppy. I mean, we were sloppy for a lot of last night, which is really frustrating. It was really difficult to see much in terms of the patterns of play working. And of course, they did a job on us, but I just felt that we could have been cuter, sharper. And I just felt that we really underperformed all over, to be fair. I mean, there are a couple of standout players. I mean, like Højbjerg, I usually give him an absolute kicking, don't I? But I think he seemed to be somebody who, despite his injury, just really put in a shift. But
I
I
felt
didn't really,
so. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
not much else. I mean, Son, where do we go from there at the moment? He's got to be dropped surely for the next game. Kane had another mediocre game. Too many of them were below par, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I don't know whether you can add anything to that, Rich, in terms of
Well,
our
yeah, I mean,
sloppiness and slowness.
what I'll say is, I mean, just sort of touching on a couple of things there, really. Going back to what you were saying a little while ago about them setting up with a being quite well set up in order to play against us in particular. I mean, I thought the missed opportunity was the first 10 minutes, because what I did notice was that their press and their attempt to win the ball back up in the middle of our half was really, really disorganized to start with. And what I could see was that some of the players didn't want to go in. They weren't doing so. The press was ineffectual because only one or two of their players was actually closing the space down, and it was giving us an awful lot of space to play around them. And what happened, and it was even before the penalty, the penalty that was that I think it was Rice. There was a particular moment when they were pressing against us and we were on the edge of our box, and he came charging in and he was waving his arms about and trying to make everybody else close in. And there was this moment that was the first time they did it, and it was like up until that point they weren't convinced it was going to work. And because we start slowly, that was a real missed opportunity, because if we'd have kept them on the back foot, at that point, then they would not have been able to grow into that. And actually they did really quite effectively. And like you say, pushing to keep the wing backs back and targeting Sanchez. And I don't want to sort of go in on Big Dave, because he often looks worse than he is. And, we haven't conceded many goals with him in the side of late,
No,
so
that's right.
So for all of his faults, he does do a good job.
And to be fair, when we conceded, it wasn't on his side of the area
exactly.
anyway.
Yeah. And so, but they did, Antonio targeted him, and you could see that they were what triggered their press was when Sanchez got the ball during our play out process, and that's when they closed down. So they've obviously listened to Mourinho talking to him in our All-1 series, when he said, "Oh, that's how we targeted you when you were at Ajax."
Yeah.
And so this is obviously a well-known fault in him, and they exploited it really well. And I just feel that had we have gone at them, because I was really surprised that they were so timid from the kickoff. Had we had gone at them, then we could and should have already have been a goal up before that moment when they decided to give it a proper go.
Yeah.
And I think that would have made the whole difference to everything if we'd have just gone right. We think you're going to kick the crap out of us. We're going to take a chunk out of you first. It would have stopped them in the track.
To be fair, it was only about 5 or 6 minutes they decided to have a proper go, because I think the penalty that was then overturned really sort of made them think, right, we need to up our game here, because so I think they started stronger. That seemed to inspire them, the fact that
it also got the bubble boys going, didn't it?
It did. Yeah. And that was only after, to say about 5 or 6 minutes. But going back to what you were saying, Rich, and you as well, Andy, about Sanchez and Romero both do a solid job. They're decent players.
Royale, you mean?
Royale, sorry.
Yeah, you're doing the same as me. I do it.
Sorry, it begins with R.
Yeah.
But I've got no bones to pick with them because they are what they are.
Yeah,
They do the job that we've asked of them, but they just aren't naturals in those positions. That Romero can come into midfield and give us more,
yeah,
going forward.
yeah,
Also, he reads the game far better. And Royale, again does a job, but he just is not a right wing back, so
no,
it isn't very effective in that particular role, which then is basically the weakest link in the system. So and I don't mean to be harsh on them both because, like I say, they both have given everything. You can't fault that, but we need to recruit better there. Or do we start giving Spence an outing now? It probably is too early and we don't have much choice, but
yeah,
that isn't quite working enough. And I feel, I've got no scientific proof for it, but I feel that some of the system is let down by that. Particularly, Royale not being an actual very effective right wing back.
yeah. Although you say that, in the end of last season, we were relying on both Sanchez and Royale for the last few games, and they did a great job. So I think they can do a job within a certain remit, but at the moment, I just think the whole team is a bit dysfunctional, a bit disjointed.
Mm.
So to actually get the best out of them is asking a bit too much. I think if you saw Kane and Son firing a bit
Yeah.
more, then maybe it would bring them into play a bit more. It's just that dynamic. But yeah, I
I
think
think
it's.
it's. I
Sorry,
think
Rich, go
it's.
ahead.
Sorry, mate. Sorry, interrupting you. I think it's important to note as well what we were saying about the midfield pair actually being under a lot of pressure yesterday.
Yeah,
That Kane appearing to have a quiet game is probably because he spent so much time moving back to
yeah,
support those two.
yeah.
So yeah, like you say, he's if he was up top looking forward and moving forward and pulling defenses around, then it lifts the entire team. But I think he was
Mm.
doing an essential job last night, wasn't he? He was basically firefighting.
He was a bit, and actually, although he doesn't do a bad job doing it, it's not actually getting the best out of him because
No.
the only way that you get the best out of him coming deep is by him getting the ball and then
Mm.
distributing it. But the problem is with Kane is that everybody knows that when he comes deep, he wants the ball so he can distribute it. So they put three or four players on him. They just sack him in the middle of the pitch.
Mm. Mm.
So it's a struggle to actually get that any kind of progress with that. But I also felt that although Kulusevski did a great bit of skill, great bit of power running for our goal, I felt that he was fairly quiet last night as well, and he's starting to drift out of games. It's all a bit of a general theme across the pitch, isn't it?
I don't know. I mean, I thought he was one of our better players last night, but like me and Rich were saying in the last pod, I think they're doubling up.
Yeah, they are.
And they double up on him and they double up on Kane, or they sack Kane in the midfield, as you say, so that they realise that he is obviously one of our most creative players, and so we got to be cuter and clever, and I think also a bit
Yeah.
quicker.
Yeah, I think this is it. At the moment, we're getting marked all over the pitch, but we should be using the speed of the ball a bit more to,
Mm.
one touch to get it switched a bit more so that they can't cover that ground. And but actually, I'm sure Conte knows more about this than I do. It's just that I'm just
Really?
seeing, yeah, I'm just seeing things that I think I know what the problems are, but I'm not
Well,
at all sure whether I am.
that's why we do a pod, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah,
Just so we can
exactly,
chat shit
exactly.
and
Yeah,
we
that's
like we
right.
know what we're talking about,
Yeah,
but really we
exactly.
don't.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. We've got zero qualifications in this at
Yeah.
all, but hey, there we are.
I mean, after the game, I kind of, I wasn't happy. I think, to be honest, I reckon both sets of fans would have felt disappointed because
Yeah,
either side could have taken it. We should have, by form, by quality, have won that game, but we didn't. They had some great chances and really upped their game and could have won it. I mean,
yeah,
Paqueta could have won it for them. Antonio could have won it for them. So overall, probably a draw was the right result.
it probably was.